Okay, I think we're live here, so thanks to everybody that's joining us from home, as well as those of us that have joined together here in council chambers. This is a work session of the Poquoson City Council. It is August the 10th on Monday, and we're here to talk about Wainwright Drive private and public drainage easements, and this is from a request coming out of the public hearing from the last meeting, where we heard that there were some concerns about drainage, and we asked staff to go and take a look and come back with the storyline, and then if there's anything that we need to do. So, Randy, how would y'all like to proceed? All right.
Good evening, everyone. Let me get the mic here, make sure I can be heard. Sounds good. I've got a brief PowerPoint that's going to go over the easements in the area that are both private and public, and I thought that'd be the best way to go with it tonight. Sum it up. So what I did is I broke it down into two areas because it was kind of hard to put it all on one map and still be able to understand it. So area one is Poquoson Avenue, and that's towards the top of the screen. Area two is Wainwright Drive, and I'll sort of take them in order from there. There's area one before I put anything on it. You can see Poquoson Avenue, you can see Islander Way, and that's the E-Step car properties, and I actually think Mr. Jones's property is not too far up there. First thing I want to cover is the reinforced concrete pipe. We heard a lot, or we heard some anyway, at the last hearing that that pipe might be damaged or crushed or not doing its job. We actually had Public Works go out there, thanks Tom, and take a look at the pipe. You can see that it's clear. You can see some daylight at the end of it. This is the part of the pipe that actually goes under Poquoson Avenue. They also took pictures of the other parts of the pipe that went all the way out to the outfall in the creek, and that was all clear as well. So the pipe is in good shape. What we have here is we have a lot of private drainage easements. They're going into the area of that pipe. You can see that listed here over on the left, the drainage easement. That's actually a drainage easement that goes across the Hefner property, which used to be the Anderson property. I believe Mr. Hefner was here at the last meeting. You can see the 18-inch RCP reinforced concrete pipe going under. It is subverted. It is underground. Going underneath, looks like a bit of the E-Step property and outfalling into the ditch that is on the car property. Those are all to varying degrees clogged. The 20-foot drainage easement is very clogged. It's got mature trees basically in the middle of it. I can't really speak to the condition of the 18-inch pipe. That is a private pipe, but again, it could be somewhat, we heard from Mr. E-Step that it's not working the way it should be. The ditch, again, that's a private ditch going to the outfall. Okay, let's put it together with the public. The public, the ditch within the right-of-way, of course, that's public. The 32-inch pipeline going underneath Poquoson Avenue, you can see that. 32 feet, sorry. 30 feet of pipeline running, I don't know why it's running at a 90-degree angle, but it does. And then it takes another 90-degree angle, 138 feet to the outfall. That is all public. We also heard some comments last time that this pipe might be too small. Well, really, until we know what's going on with these ditches and we get these ditches cleared out, we really don't have a way of knowing how big, how upsized, if upsized at all, this pipe would have to be.
So, Wally, I'm just going to ask you a question. The 32 feet of pipeline, I just want to make sure I'm thinking correctly. That is the pipeline that we got the picture of.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
And it's clear.
And it's clear.
It's clear. Yes,
okay,
sir.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, Area 1, this sort of puts it all together. The red is private, the blue is public, so this is really the way this network functions. Again, until we really clean out the ditches or have the pipe, and this is all private now, and until the 20-foot drainage easement is cleaned out, we really don't have a way of knowing how much extra water would be going into that ditch along the right-of-way and ultimately going into the pipe. So that's problem number one, is, these private easements, well, they should have been getting maintained anyway, but they should definitely be maintained so that we know what our responsibilities are. Area 2, this is the area off of Wainwright Drive, which I think is probably the thing that started it all anyway. Private easements, a private pond. You can see that area that's kind of a recessed, grassed area at this point. The 20-foot drainage easement running in back of that would be the Diggs properties, Diggs and Butler. 20-foot drainage easement, that's what up in the upper right-hand side of the aerial. That's what you saw continuing along in Area 1. It's a rather long easement. And again, it is clogged. There's also a ditch traversing the Dunlap property. Not much of a ditch left, but it's considered tidal wetlands. If Mr. Dunlap was to do a two-lot subdivision down here, he would probably fill it in, but he'd have to make it up on his own property because we have a rule now, pre and post drainage and impacts cannot be, have to be the same, if not reduced. In other words, you can't pass along your drainage issues onto somebody else. Okay, so that's the private network. Public, we did put a swale in. I guess it was about 12, 13 years ago. Am I roughly right about that, Tom? I'm looking at Tom because I wasn't here when it happened.
Are you talking about the swale?
The swale, the bump along Wainwright Drive.
Put in, yeah, probably approximately
Okay.
12, 14 years ago.
Okay. That is public by virtue of the fact that it is on Wainwright Drive. And Wainwright Drive is public, as we all know. There is a culvert at the end of that unimproved portion. And as the city owns that unimproved portion, that I can tell you from being there, I'd show you a picture, but quite honestly, it's hard to see it through the picture with all the grass and overgrown, but that needs to be cleaned out. And I understand from Public Works that they can get to that without traversing on anybody else's property. Yes.
Before you leave this yard, the property that we're in some consideration, is this adjacent to that culvert pipe going up the Wainwright Drive?
Yes, sir. That culvert pipe traverses that right of way. That's an issue.
All right, can you show us about where on that map is that property?
Sure. Excuse me for walking away from the microphone here for a minute. I didn't bring my pointer, which was.
It's okay. It's the property that says public.
But see where it says culvert public?
Yeah.
Is that little rectangle? That is the unimproved area of Wainwright
Okay,
Drive.
So just
Thank
making
you
sure
very
again
much.
that I'm thinking correctly, that that little sliver of property there is the 50-foot that we were considering public bid on, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And one reason we asked for a survey as part of it is just to kind of nail down the exact, location. That's a GIS map. It can be off a few feet.
Okay.
But, okay, so this is putting it all together. The private is in the red and the public is in the blue. We can do something about the public stuff. We can do that now. Let me back up just a minute, though, because one thing I thought about. This pipeline here, this 32-inch pipeline, it actually is on our constrained capital improvements plan for upgrade of some kind. It's actually listed in fiscal year 2025 and beyond, $230,000. Again, it was not the result of any drainage study. It was just added. So again, just to reiterate the point, we don't really know how big, if any bigger at all, that pipe needs to be. It sure would be nice if these private drainages were working the way they should, and then I think we'd have a better idea. Same thing here. When we look at the private drainage easements through this area, they're not working. They're clogged. They're overgrown. The pond basically is not even there. It's just a recessed grassed area at this point. The swell and the culvert, again, we can do something about. Believe it or not, that's all I've got.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It made those charts very clear. Appreciate it, Wally.
Thanks.
I'd just like to make one comment, Wally, and I don't mean to correct you, but the condition of the drainage easement does not determine the size of the pipe. It's the area of the total drainage that goes into that pipe. So
Understood.
you can calculate how big that pipe should be, even if none of those private drainage easements worked at all, because it's the area that drains into it that determines the size of the pipe and the surface. If it's a grassed area, of course, it's less, the flow is less, but any impervious surface, the drain is faster. So you can calculate the size of that pipe by just the area that drains into it.
Right. And I think the point I was trying to make, and I hear you, and that's very, very good observation. The point I was trying to make, though, is that regardless of how many acres are involved here, without it being able to go through this pipe or through the ditch unobstructed, again,
You can't get there.
it's kind of hard. I mean, yes, we can do it based on acreage. You're absolutely right, but it's still not going to solve the problem.
No, that won't solve the problem at all.
Right.
If they're not working, it can't get to that pipe.
So the only question I have, going back to the information you gave us, when we said, all right, here's the picture of the pipe, back to your slide 3, I think it is.
Yes.
Here's the picture of the pipe. We said that's the 32-foot, and then you said, and there's a 90, and then another 138 feet of pipeline. Did we look down the entire thing? That's all I want to know. So we
Yes.
looked down it, and the whole thing is clear. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I guess the council, y'all let me know where you want to go, but my recommendation is that staff just kind of type this into a letter and send it to the affected property owners. That our recommendation to them is to improve their drainage, and if they need some consultation on how to do that, we can do the consultation, we just
Sure.
can't do the work. Right?
Understood.
Anybody disagree with that path?
Not a disagreement, but a question. We have absolutely no authority nor responsibility to do anything with with private drainage.
Correct.
That's totally theirs, and they can do with it how they choose.
Well, they can do it that's why I said we can consult with them, what they might have to look out for, the pitfalls. Want to be helpful, but
Sure.
bottom line is we can't send the public works crew out there to do improvements on a private.
Correct.
Understand that part, but we have no responsibility or should we, to take any kind of action saying, hey, y'all really should clean out this ditch. We don't have that authority, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's all I'm asking to do. You understand, Randy, I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Just,
Sure.
What you're asking, I believe, is for us to reduce this to to writing, send it to all of the neighbors, the ones that were at your last meeting and all others to which it's pertinent, encouraging them to clean and make functional the private drainage easements that drain into the public system.
Right.
And that we're available for consultation and advice. We could potentially be available for some kind of public-private partnership, but we don't have on our own the ability to go onto someone's private property and do things to it. We would need a more formalized partnership in form of an easement, whether that be temporary or permanent, to address it. But we certainly can help, and as Wally said, we're prepared, unless otherwise directed, to go ahead and clear out that culvert pipe, the smaller one off of the right-of-way off of Wainwright Drive. We can get that done in the next few weeks with our equipment, Tom's people and
Okay.
Chad's equipment.
He's behind you.
I'm sorry, Thomas.
Tom-
Mr. Jones is
Thomas-
right behind us.
Hold on, Thomas, that was other duties as assigned. Just, all right, sorry.
We good?
Yes, thank you. All right, staff, thank you for that. I think that's all we had this evening, wasn't
questions.
it? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Are we going to find out if that pipe, like Buddy said, is, like, are we gonna calculate that to make sure that we have the right size pipe in there?
We certainly,
Has that been done before? I don't know how long that pipe's been there.
I don't believe there's been a formal drainage study.
I don't mean to cut you off. This is the type of thing we were talking with several months ago about area drainage studies. What the city engineer opined is that the current pipe is sufficient to carry all of the public drainage, except in a storm event or something like that. It's the contributing private drainage that sometimes overwhelms it. It's a 5-year out drainage study. It's a 5-year out or more. You recall how the CIP, the last year of the CIP is and beyond. It has been and beyond for some years. Prior to the project actually getting traction and moving forward to a funded project, we will absolutely recalculate what it should be. Right now, according to the city engineer, it is sufficient to cover the public drainage. But we know that we've got a shared responsibility to try to make it better for everybody, and we will. But that's the best answer I've got.
Okay, I mean, there's clearly a lot of flooding there based on what everybody said, so is it our assessment or staff's assessment that if all those private drainage ditches were cleaned out and maintained properly, that the existing flooding that we have, other than, a major storm, would dissipate?
Not necessarily, to be honest, because, as I said, the city engineers determined the size of the pipe is sufficient for the public drainage that's being, the addition of the private drainage is what overwhelms that at some time. So as those projects to clear those upstream private drainage areas are put in place, that's when we'll need to start planning that project, which will be a significant expense.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
so not to mince words here, but bottom line is, it certainly wouldn't hurt, and it will probably improve the situation. And then, the city's, I guess, just trying to make sure we all understand our lane here. Okay, all these privately held properties that drain to the existing drainage structure are private. So right now, we just want to make sure we stay in our lane here. You know how big I am on lanes of authority, that if the property is improved, then they owe some groundwork. And then does the city have to make improvements upon that? And then a developer might be asked to help with those improvements. So it's not just a unilateral, we go change a pipe. In fact, when you do that calculation, because I'm sure the city engineer will go do it, you may want to consider, does it need to be in the CIP or not?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just touching on your point,
because that was in the CCIP, and some of you may have had similar conversations, and I did with some with staff and some with residents of different houses in Wainwright Drive. There was a thought that our pipe was either crushed or non-functional, but of course, after Tom and his folks went out and looked at it, that's not the case. So I just want to make sure that in the manager's letter to those citizens that, we let them know, hey, our public drainage system is adequate. I'll say, it's not broken or crushed or, I think that's important because a few of those folks, and until a couple weeks ago, myself included, was under the impression that there was an issue with our pipe, but we need to make it very clear that it's not.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll close the work session then.